the hype and build up to it was worth the price of admission, in my opinion. I'm already satisfied.
Nice.
Um,
Big price of free knowledge.
all right, so I'm live. I'm restreaming on Twitch, so I'll be able to save the VOD, etc.
Okay.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, are you just gonna share screen in Discord, or
Yeah, that was my plan.
okay,
Does
perfect.
that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm sure no one I know will ever see this, but I'm gonna be extra careful. Not
Uh,
that there's anything bad, really, but
I mean, I will not make it public if you don't want it to be public. That's totally fine.
I think I can edit it down real quick just to be.
I could also not record it if you don't want it to be recorded. I don't want to.
No, no,
Okay.
it's okay. It's just I have. I think you'll understand when I get to the point. I don't want to spoil.
Are you gonna spoil who wins?
Who wins a soccer?
Yeah.
It's the beauty. You have to play the game.
Not predetermined.
It's not that I know of. It could be. Um, who's not here? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow. What an
Yeah, and
audience.
streaming it may help keep some of your students in line as well.
I think
True.
Wenti and Tro both indicated interest and aren't here. I will ping
I
them.
think Tro said he wouldn't be here.
I'm still gonna do it.
Go for it. Okay.
Can I ask? Well, is there gonna be time for questions?
Of course. Of
Maybe
course.
maybe if we're waiting a minute, I have a just a general kind of soccer question. I'm sure you were gonna talk about it, so I don't want you to jump ahead. But you know how in the other sports like basketball and baseball and football,
Yes.
the name of the sport is also the name of the ball.
Yes.
But is that true in soccer? And if so or not, then why?
It is true if you're not a dirty American and you call it football.
Well, I also think that in like the 1920s and 30s, it was actually called soccer ball, but it just that got too long, so we just shortened it in American.
Do we know why they shortened it to soccer rather than ball or ball?
Uh, I knew that at one point. I don't remember off the top.
Hmm.
It actually they used soccer in England in like the early 1900s for some reason, but I don't recall at the moment. Um, I'm trying to. Okay, never mind. I think I got it. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Can you see? Is the quality okay?
Yeah, looks great.
Nice. Okay. All right, let's get it popping. I'm sure our tardy attendees uh, can jump in. Good evening. Thank you for your attendance in this voluntary supplementary lecture. I ask that you respect the decorum of this institution, and I'm sure you all have dressed appropriately, business casual. You don't need to prove it. I'm wearing a suit, but you won't see that. Just, it's true. This is soccer, sometimes called football. What does it do? And here's where the crowd would clap. Oh, I think it's broken already. Oh, no, there we go. Itinerary. I forgot to update the slide. So some of this will be here. Some of this may not. We'll cover soccer and positions and basics and some introductory thing, and I didn't add anything about corner kicks and free kicks. And there's some other stuff under tactics that I don't recall what is wrote on this page, but we'll find out. So, without further ado, let's go. Oops. Some other stuff. Okay. Important. If you don't know anything, just pretend like you do, and you will be ahead of the pack. Most important thing to note on the slide, the further the ball is kicked, the louder you are supposed to cheer. That's the American way of watching the beautiful game. Okay.
Is there a questions? Should we like save them to the end, or do you want us to raise our hand, or
Ooh, good question. If you have questions and they're appropriate to the current topic, please feel free to lightly and politely interrupt me. Yes, student X, what is your question?
Who kicks the ball the furthest?
Who kicks the ball the furthest in the world?
Who gets the loudest cheer?
It depends. You can kick it as far as you want.
That's a
That
really
that
good
was just
question.
an ironic joke talk. But it's
Oh,
very
ha.
yeah. Thank you for laughing. Very common in the world that I live in with people that don't really understand much. I should say this talk is gonna be it's not rehearsed, obviously, so may not be as smooth as you would like. This is all very opinionated, comes from my point of view, and it's more geared towards the tactics and the strategy side. So all that's obviously open to interpretation. Let's keep going. Life as a coach. So I
Quick.
Your slides are messed up a bit.
my slides are messed up.
It keeps bouncing back to the opening slide over and over again.
Oh no. Why is it doing this?
Are you streaming it as an application?
Yes.
Now I think you're good.
Looks better now.
Yeah. It works now.
There we go. You see, life as a coach. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the Discord thing. I'm not sure what that is. So I coach at a club in Ohio, and I'm our boys director of coaching, which means I oversee our all of our boys teams. Probably have 35 to 40 total teams between boys and girls, U8 to U19. I coach several teams myself and do a lot of the admin stuff. So I am currently coaching a 2007 boys, which would be U16, who are just starting to get into kind of the college recruitment cycle. I've coached all the way up to U19. I've had players go D1, 2, 3 in AIA. We did have one player in our club who I didn't work with directly, but she was at one point in the national team player pool. She went on to play. She was a goalkeeper at Illinois, and is now an assistant coach at a D1 school. So we've had some good players come through. You can see what I look like on the right. That was taken probably 10 years ago, but just proof that I'm a professional. You get to tell children what to do. Go ahead.
It's like the second closest we've ever had to a face cam for Wenza, which is, I think, a momentous thing.
That's true.
And you sound like you obviously know what you're talking about, and you're a professional, which is awesome. What was the percent chance you thought that this text message was you being hit on, as well as a witness for a divorce case?
For this particular one, man, I probably was, I must have been, 24, 25 at that point. I don't think this particular mother was hitting on me. I do have other texts I could show that I think are a little suspicious.
Can you
never confirmed.
send those?
Can I send those?
Can you show us them?
They're on a future slide, right?
Those ones are not. I'd have to dig them up. I spent like an hour today digging through old emails and stuff to try to find some. I found some of the goodies that I wanted to find, but not all of them. I was never You're welcome. I was never summoned to court for this particular instance, but I was prepared. So I'm a coach. So that means everything I say is true. Sometimes you get really nice emails sent early in the morning that are a little bit unhinged, and we won't read this whole thing, but this was from, at one point I coached a high school girls varsity team. This was from my first season, and I woke up in the morning to find this barrage of character, and this is just one portion of the email. Most parent interactions are not nearly this toxic or involved in terms of dialogue, but this particular mother had it out for me. The funny thing here was that she was our booster club president, meaning she didn't have control of our finances, but she was the one that would sign checks. This whole season became a nightmare. The summary of which being she felt her daughter was quite a bit better than she was. So much of this I don't believe is true, but you get to have fun interactions like that. And this continued into more emails. This is from the same one. And eventually I had to get her banned from the stadium, and I had to block her from my email and my phone number. And it was a whole ordeal. I like this line: getting a firm answer from you is like nailing Jell-O to a wall.
I think we can all empathize with that. Yeah.
Did you get a 32
fair.
or a 35 on the ACT?
I got a 32. Is that in? Oh, yeah. I got a 32. I don't think I ever said I got a 35.
Question.
Question.
What are the chances that this woman was hitting on you with this email?
0%. I think she wanted to murder me with a weapon, I'm sure. Or perhaps her bare hands. Eventually got through it. The girl became a role player the next year. But that was a fun time. Very stressful. So I don't think there's anything else I want to highlight in this one. Let's talk about the real game. So soccer, the goal, you kick the round circle, the sphere into the net. It's important that you kick it into the correct net, which you should identify prior to the start of the match. You can use other body parts from time to time, including hands, but not like this. I will see if I can pull up this clip. This is probably, I think, the most famous instance of like a World Cup highlight. It's Diego Maradona. If you have heard that name, he was an Argentinian star. Later went on to be a manager and heavily addicted to drugs. He scored to knock England out of the World Cup with a clever handball. So let me see. Give me 1 second here if I can flip Discord to.
Don't push yourself. Like, if you can't do it, it's fine.
I know it's probably unexpected for me to succeed here, but I think I've got it.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow. Okay. Let's
awesome.
watch. Let's watch Diego Maradona.
The wide men have found little space in this contest.
Are those vuvuzelas I hear?
At the moment.
Could be.
Certainly it's been true of the England team. Haven't seen that much of Hodge or Trevor Stephen. Maradona just walked away from Hoddle then. Valdano, Hodge, and
Wow.
Wow.
they're appealing for offside. The ball came back off the foot.
And he punched that in.
And Maradona
He punches the ball in, which you may or may not know is illegal.
Well,
You're not allowed to do that.
But he was inside of the
Allegedly.
goalie box.
Oh,
He was inside of the goalie box, but he did not have on the proper goalie equipment.
So was his hand like behind his head? Like, how did the ref know?
I think it shows a better angle here.
to the referee. But the
Why don't all the
referee
players
started it by
play with
walking
the
past
proper goalie equipment
Hoddle.
on.
That's where the ball came from Hodge.
Oh,
If you can see there.
He looks he looks offsides too.
Oh, we will get into the offside rule. He is not.
Yeah.
If you want to get into
No?
it,
By a foot.
maybe
yeah.
here, if we can identify the moment the ball was played.
And
Looks
hands.
like he's about to head the ball.
Enhance.
This player's about to hit the ball. Enhance, yes.
Streamer, you can use the settings button in the bottom right to change the playback speed. That might be easier.
I think we got the moment. Offside is defined. We'll get into this in a minute. But offside is defined at the moment the ball is played. I believe this is Maradona right here. He would not be offside. This player would be offside. This one would be questionable.
Oh, so it was
It was
clear
actually hit by the
By the-
defender.
by the defender? I
Yeah.
see. Or is attempted clear?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Deflection from the defender. The touch from the defender, the rule has changed in recent years. It's not really important to get into. But regardless, he blatantly handballed it. The referee missed the call. England's out of the World Cup.
That is so
Now-
blatant.
Now, why didn't it go to VAR?
Why didn't it go to VAR? That's a good question. They did not invent television at the point that this game was played. It was impossible to watch things on screens. Fun fact.
Mm.
Sounds amazing.
All right. Let's go. You see.
Okay.
I see Discord bugging out.
It looks good now.
Looks good.
I think it's
You
solid.
can see it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Oop, we'll go back real quick. Want to just touch briefly. Obviously, it's 11v11. Technical, if I use the term technical, that refers to what a player can do with the ball. Pass, dribble, shoot, receive, head the ball. If I use the term tactical, referring to an individual player, it's their movement off the ball, it's their decision-making, their placement on the field. Those are kind of more coaching terms, but wanted to be clear about that terminology. Talk a little bit about the referee has discretion to make calls or to not make calls, even if a foul was committed. So are you guys familiar with the term advantage in soccer?
No.
No? Okay, so even if a blatant foul is committed, if it's, and this is purely up to the center referee's discretion, if it would be more advantageous to the team that was not, to the team that did not commit the foul, the receiving team of the foul, if it's determined that stopping play and giving a free kick would not be as advantageous as allowing play to continue, the referee will have the right to not blow the whistle.
So that's kind of like maybe in football, if you want to decline a penalty, that sort of thing. Like you'd prefer to not have the penalty assessed.
Correct. Yeah, there's no stoppage of play where the coach gets to make any decision. That's
Okay.
the referee. So sometimes you'll see arguments break out where the referee either did or did not, allow a play to continue due to the advantage rule, and they'll argue about that. Not that that's relevant to this Diego Maradona clip, but something just to keep in mind. So I think compared to many sports, I'm not familiar with all of them, I guess, but compared to many sports, the referee has much more power in terms of his interpretation of the rules of the game.
As a coach, like talking about you personally, what's your split between how often you coach tactical versus technical?
Depends on the age group. So I think I mentioned I'm coaching mostly high school boys. I also run our club's juniors program, which is U5 to U8 players. So the U5s, the U8s, it'll be 100% technical ability, kind of a gradual scale up to at the high school ages. If it's, I'd say an average session is probably 50% technical versus 50% tactical. That could change if we have a big match, state cup match or district final or something. It'd be more tactical. Early in the season, maybe more technical. Good question.
Thank you. I got the first good question.
No, just the first one I recognize. I believe all the questions have been great. Okay, the pitch, the field. In terms of reviewing the game strategically, hopefully you guys can see the proper slide here. The pitch is referred to in 3/3 or 5 channels. So if we were defending on this bottom left, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor.
Yeah, we
Again,
Okay, so if we're defending on this left goal, defensive third, you generally want to play more safe, take less risk. In the middle, starts to build up towards the attacking side where you're willing to take more risk in terms of your decision making or things, because the risk is less risky when you're close to the attacking goal, in terms of if you lose the ball, it's unlikely you'll be punished by conceding a goal immediately. If the risk pays off, you have a high chance of being successful. So use that terminology quite a bit. And then on the right, 5 channels to refer to players positionally. In terms of verticality of the field, you have a central channel, you have wide channels on the left and right, and then what are called half spaces in the areas in between. So we'll talk a little bit about those as we go forward. Oops, the refs. I just like this picture. I think it's cool.
That's NSFW.
Yeah, it might be actually. I didn't look at that close. It might
Should
be
I
on the
not
side.
be streaming this?
I'm streaming this at work.
Well, just hold your hand up over the screen if it bothers you.
That's how it works.
You're streaming this.
The world needs to know.
Sorry, coach.
That's okay. In terms of like the World Cup, you'll see 4 referees at a game. You have a center who's really controls everything. You have ARs who can wave their flag to suggest that a foul has been committed or a law of the game has been broken, or to manage logistical elements, substitutions, things like that. But really the center is the one that controls everything. Only the center can give cards. He's the only one that has a whistle. At the highest levels, they'll wear headsets and talk to each other. I am a big proponent of not bothering the referees, not crying about fouls and stuff. I think that's a pervasive element throughout sport that is ruining the game, but that's kind of me on my soapbox. You can have your own opinion there. And if I were to referee games at a youth level, I would charge at least $5,000 because it's a very thankless job. Referees are important.
I have a question about this.
Yes,
I don't know
sir.
if you're going to get into it. So, like, say in the World Cup, like 2 European countries are playing, like France versus England. Will they try to get refs from other parts of the world so there's no bias?
They will. They'll have, I believe in the World Cup, the refs work in groups. I know they do in like Champions League, which is a club competition, but they'll have teams, let's say a South American team of referees may be assigned to work a game between 2 European countries. I don't know the exact particulars, but yeah, they'll try to avoid nationality bias.
Professor.
Yes, sir.
Question. So you said you typically don't like questioning, any fouls called out or by refs. What if there's like a call out that you just did not agree with, or you just could not understand how they called it? Do you just keep silent, or?
It depends. I've gotten carded for getting angry at referees before, but I think it's very rare for me individually to do it compared to many other coaches. Again, I coach at a youth level, so our emphasis is on developing the player, and I think it's a little bit backwards to focus a ton of energy on arguing with a referee. It's distracting to the player, and it teaches them that they are subject to the whim of outside forces that control their game. Almost everything you could do something different, right? If you committed a foul, perhaps you could have approached the situation differently, or if you didn't get a call that you think you should have, maybe you could have scored a goal, 2 minutes earlier by doing something different. So more just of a philosophical kind of perspective. But I've never been red carded. Have been yellow carded at times in particular matches that may be more meaningful or impactful. I've never seen a referee change a call. So why bother arguing, is my opinion. We keep going. Okay, offside. So this is by far the most confusing rule of the game. First, many people say offsides. It's offside, not offsides. And
Did my dad phone in and tell you that?
No.
He loves to correct me on that.
Yeah. So you're an offsides there?
I just default to that. I know he tells me there's only one side, so it's not plural. He was a former ref, so he likes
Ooh.
to correct me on that.
I bet he has some hella good stories.
He's got some good stories. He coached, he refed as well. Yeah.
So did you maybe you should tell us a little bit about your background. Did you play before?
I played. I played in high school. And growing up, my dad is a huge super fan. I just love watching soccer and cheering. And yeah, he was a much bigger fan than I am, but I try to follow along and keep up with kind of Premier League type stuff.
Oh, cool. Do you have a team you support? Premier League wise?
I just love to see goals, but if I had to choose, I would say Tottenham.
Okay, that's a respectable answer. Very respectable. I didn't mention my playing background. Not that it's important. I also played high school and club, and then played club ball, not varsity ball, but I played on the Ohio State men's club team, which was pretty good. I was the worst player on the team.
Why did you choose to be a coach?
I got a call from my former club coach when I was like 19. And our club, the club that I had played for and continue to coach at now, was growing, and they needed coaches. And I thought I could make some beer money doing something kind of fun, and then just kind of enjoyed it.
You said you got that call when you were 21 years or older?
No, I was younger.
So you wanted beer money when you were underage?
I see. You wanted to be fiscally responsible to
Yeah,
save up for a couple
He's
years.
saving up for beer.
Peter's
Save it
channel
up
is
for beer money?
Peter's getting banned from Twitch after 30 minutes.
It's about time.
I put it all in an investment account and saved it until the day I was 21. That's correct. Thank you for correcting me. Let's take a look at offside rule. There's some words that describe it. It's much easier to see here. So let me pull this up. Flip. Change windows.
Did you make this PowerPoint for us?
Yes.
I'm actually...
You're welcome. Has
Thank
many
you. Very appreciated.
many postmodern design elements went into it. Okay, let's watch this clip.
What a cheater.
Yes, offside. Taker away of scoring chances and confuser of casual soccer fans everywhere. Is it frustrating at times? Yes, of course. But it's also an important and valuable rule. Without offside, there'd be no need for perfectly timed through balls and crosses, nor perfectly timed runs combined with gravity-defying headers. The game would be mayhem, chaos, a catastrophe. So what is offside? If the assistant referee raises his flag, it means that an offensive player was too far forward. According to FIFA, a player is in an offside position if he is nearer to his opponent's goal line than both the ball and the second last opponent. The key is realizing that offside is determined by when the ball is last touched. When Daley Blind hit his amazing ball over the Spanish defense, Robin van Persie was clearly onside with two opponents between him and the goal. Only after the ball left Blind's foot did van Persie streak past the defense.
And the perfect header almost from the edge of the box.
Still confused? Here's an example of a correctly called offside infraction.
And into offside.
Now here's an example of a correct non-call.
Looking right, and he gets the ball across, and this time, England
A perfectly timed pass combined with a perfectly timed run. No offside, then the integrity of the game remains intact. Sometimes it's a very close call, and it's up to the referee's discretion whether some small portion of a player's body is just barely offside. And that's when everyone gets very mad. But often the right decision is obvious. One more time. Offside, not offside. Offside, not offside. Got it? Great. Oh, by the way, the offside rule only applies when you're on the offensive half of the field, and you can't be offside on a throw-in. And the last two opponents don't have to be a defender and the goalkeeper, it can just be two defenders. And if you're in an offside position but you're not involved in the play, then that's perfectly legal.
All right. Crystal clear, correct?
Yeah, I want to hear more from this guy, actually.
Yeah.
His lecture is another day.
So you can't be offside on a throw-in, but once the ball is played, can you then be offside, or does that apply until the possession changes?
So the infraction occurs at the moment the ball is played. You're either offside or you're not. If the ball is then played again, there's another check to see if somebody is offside or not. Is
Gotcha.
that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think that's just
Okay. Okay. All right. We mentioned VAR earlier, just video assisted review. A lot of strong takes on it, but I'd expect to see it at the World Cup for particularly close calls. Refs are encouraged, I believe, to make calls. If it's borderline, if they're unsure, they're encouraged to assume that an offense was committed, and then VAR can go back and correct it. It's funny because VAR, it still seems to be that many calls are not made correctly, and that's an opinion, but for what it's worth, it exists, and people like it or you don't. So pick your side. Okay, you start to get a little more.
Oh,
you love it?
You don't want us to do it right now? Sorry.
Make shout it to the world if you are so inclined.
I expected breakout sessions, and we all had to defend our.
I would never take a side that I'm forced to keep, because new evidence can point and change your opinion.
Yeah, I was thinking we should all vote now on what we think, and then we'll come back at the end of the lecture and see if we still think the same way.
Yeah.
Wow.
But maybe we should just do that in our heads.
We'll leave it as an exercise to the reader, but I enjoy the mature takes. Very unexpected from this Discord.
What?
Anyways, this is where it starts to get a little more. Yeah, I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. It's a little more, I guess, I don't know, grindy or not as interesting. But when coaching, at least, and when you're talking about the strategy, the tactics of the game, it's very common to refer to players as a number. The number is not corresponded to what their jersey number is. It's more of a reflection of what position they're playing.
It was
like basketball.
That's why you see many players wear, number 9, 11, 7, because those were the positions that scored goals.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see many strikers wear those attacking numbers. At one point in time when clubs would not have, player names on the back, many years ago, they would just hand a shirt to somebody and the shirt that you got would reflect the position you were playing. I think that was a good point. But these days, you won't necessarily, you might see a center forward wearing number, 3 or number 15 or something. And so I just want to kind of make that clear. It's a separate thing, at least in the way I'm talking about it now. You start in the back. Your 1 would be your goalkeeper. Your 2 and 3 would be your outside backs. Your 4 and 5 center backs. Your 6 would generally be a holding midfielder, a defensive-minded midfielder. Your 7 would be your right wing. Your 8 would be another center mid. We would call them a box-to-box midfielder who's purely a two-way player. Your 9 would be your center forward or your striker. 10 would be an attacking-minded midfielder, and 11 would be the left wing. Why is it organized in that way? I don't know exactly.
So
Just kind of the vernacular.
I have a question. So 8 is more of like the dedicated central midfielder, while 6 can pivot and move away.
Pivot. That's a good question. Pivot kind of refers more to the role that the 6 is expected to do in the attack. Again, this all changes by team. I've showed 2 formations here that are 4-3-3. You might be playing a different shape, in which case all these roles could change. But the term pivot is more of a player who occupies a central position, and let's say you have possession, you're attacking down the right side, the attack stutters, breaks down for whatever reason. You would then play through your pivot, who would facilitate switching the field and attacking the other way. You
What
can play,
what position was Maradona?
I believe he played mostly as a 10. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I think he was more of an attacking midfielder. I'm not super
He was
familiar.
he was like a Messi before there was Messi.
Yeah.
What position does Messi play?
Attacking midfield.
Yeah, primarily attacking midfield. Messi has played on the wing and has played as a false 9, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
I only know
Primarily
U.S.
as 10.
players. Like, would like Landon Donovan have played a 10?
Donovan played more. He did play some at the 10. He played a little bit more, I believe, on the left wing primarily. I think he also played a little bit at striker. We will probably see. Well, Pulisic can play a little bit at the 10. He'll probably be more on the wing. We'll go through kind of position by position. I've got pictures of the U.S. players that you would expect to see.
Isn't that
Sick.
Ronaldinho also an attacking midfielder?
Ronaldinho?
Ronald El Dino.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. He
So,
was an
like-
attacking mid.
Okay, so is there a pattern? Like the best players in the world are attacking midfielders?
I think it's more a reflection of the nature of the position. Your 10, you really want a creative player, very technical, good at dribbling, creative-minded. So by nature of that position that they're playing, I think many of the top players in the world, the most famous ones, are 10s. Kevin De Bruyne, if you know that name, is a 10. Go ahead.
Whereas Ronaldo is more of an 11. He's a winger, streaking up the sideline because he's really fast.
Oh.
Yeah.
11 on looks too.
Oh,
True.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, I'll go through this quickly. Goalkeeper, again, number 1, circled on the right. The World Cup rosters have not been set yet, have not been announced. It'll happen in the coming weeks. These 3 I would expect to be 3. I'd expect at least 2 of them probably to be on the roster. Most World Cup rosters will carry 3 goalkeepers. These 3 are kind of the 3 that are, I think, front runners at the moment. Obviously, goalkeepers can use their hands. They can only use their hands in the box or the 18. The 18 the box is called colloquially the 18 because it extends 18 yards vertically from the end of the pitch. Often very insane to be good. You have to put yourself in danger. You have to do a lot of things your body tries to tell you not to do. Go in and challenge at times when you want to flinch away. So they're often messed up in the head. IMO.
Like that Everton guy?
Timmy Howard.
Yeah, Timmy Howard.
Is he? I'm not familiar with him. Is he messed up in the head?
He has doesn't he have some tics? Some form of Tourette's or something?
Oh.
Which also, it's overblown to say he's messed up in the head. I think it's...
Professor,
I say it tongue in cheek. Yes, sir. What is your question?
On your second point, you say if you want to impress your friends, don't call them this or that, but you don't indicate what you should call them. Keeper?
The keeper.
Okay.
That's opinionated. That's my flavor.
Clarifying. Okay.
Call him what you want. Keeper.
So the best goalie in the world. Does anyone know?
Timmy Howard.
At the moment, best goalie in the world.
I have no clue.
No.
I don't know.
Would go, I believe would go. He's the German, plays for the German national team. Manuel Neuer plays for Bayern Munich. I think he is the consensus number 1. Although he's been injured, but he's watch out for his name.
Is there a certain physical requirement to be a goalie as opposed to like the other roles?
They're often really tall, which makes sense. Not always, but your world-class keepers are pretty tall. Neuer would be a good one to watch out for. He likes to play very aggressively.
Out of curiosity, like what is really tall? Is that like you got to be over 6 foot or like over 6'6" or 195 cm?
I would just say tall relative to the rest of the team. Yeah, most of them are probably over 6. doubt. I bet 6'6" would be the extreme tall end of any that you would see. I don't know
Yeah,
the stats
probably
offhand.
6'2" to 6'4", I think.
I would think if you can't even like jump and reach the top of the net, like you shouldn't be a goalie.
That
Like,
hurts.
if you can't cover the entire goal.
What is
Yeah,
the
it-
top of the
that
net?
really
How
hurts.
tall is that?
I think it's. I can double check. I think it's about 8 feet. Like, it's not as tall as you think. Size of an 11. I'll look at that up real quick.
Like this guy, the picture that you have, he can't be a goalie
Which guy?
on your PowerPoint.
Which one? There are 3.
The one in the
This
main,
one.
the
Oh.
first slide. We're seeing
first
young
slide.
Wensa on the first slide.
Oh, it must be when I click away.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, he would probably not be a goalie. The goal is 8 feet tall by 24 feet wide.
He's got the thumbs for it.
You see the proper slide at the moment? Looks like
Yeah.
you do. Okay.
So at one point, I played goalie, and I'm not very tall, but I am crazy. So
Let's go.
You were probably pretty good then.
I feel like more lucky than good, but I'll take it.
There you go. Luck is good too. Your outside backs. Again, these are 2 and 3. As the game has developed, these are very often much more attacking-minded players than you would expect, given the name as a defender. I think the 4 on the bottom listed there. Maybe not Sam Vines, but I expect Robinson and Dest to be the 2 starters for the World Cup. DeAndre Yedlin is probably going to be the only player who has played in a World Cup for the USA that will be on the roster. They'll probably carry, 7 or 8. Well, maybe not that many. 6 to 7, I would think, outside backs on the final roster. Got to be quick. You got to be good at 1v1 attacking and defending. Generally, the outside backs will take most of the throw-ins. And depending on the particular shape and style of play that you're wanting to achieve with your team, they can have various different roles. You might hear the term wing backs. These would be players who are expected to handle the roles of what would traditionally be both a winger and an outside back. You might hear of players being inverted, which refer to usually a right-footed player playing on the left side with the tendency to creep in towards the center of the field instead of going wide with the ball. Dest is probably one of the better players on or in the U.S. national team pool. Played at Barcelona for a while. That's probably a controversial opinion, but I'd watch out for him. He's very good. Center backs are also generally pretty tall. Maybe not as tall as the keeper, but they're certainly some of the stronger players in the field. So you're 4 and 5. Generally don't do a lot of attacking in the run of play, but will be threats off set pieces and corners to score out of the air. Usually got to be pretty scary to play center back. I played center back. I wasn't very scary, but that was the role that I played quite a bit. Again, the game continues to change. 20 years ago, there would be what was called a sweeper stopper. So instead of 4 and 5 playing side by side, you would have one player sitting underneath the 6, one lower. Player on top would be called the stopper, and then the sweeper would traditionally clean up any mess. But you never see that anymore. Most teams will play with a flat back system, whether it's 3 backs, 4 backs, or 5. We'll keep moving. Unless there's questions.
By rarely gets subbed.
They rarely get substituted off the field. Center backs are generally 90-minute players. I think it's
the endurance to play that long.
Yeah, it's not a position where you're doing a ton of running. If your team is attacking, your center backs are probably at around midfield or maybe a little bit more, but not too far forward. It's also just kind of a stability thing. You want 2 center backs that have good chemistry, that are into the game, and sometimes with substitutes, you risk them taking time to get into the flow of the match. And if a center back makes a mistake, then you're likely to be conceding a goal. Just kind of a tradition thing, I think. Holding mid. I would say there's kind of two archetypes. You have holding mids that are very strong ball winners, and others that are very good in distribution. Sometimes teams will play with two holding mids, and you'll pair one of those up with the other. When I say holding mid, I mean they hold their tendency to want to make runs forward. They're not doing a ton of offensive movement. Again, they're kind of staying back and being more of that pivot role where they're always kind of a negative outlet to relieve pressure, play the ball backwards, and then facilitate switching the field. I think it's the most important field player at least, to have on the team. If I were to build a team from scratch, I would start by finding the ideal holding mid. Tyler Adams, go ahead.
Yeah, these are some of the hardest working players on the pitch. Probably arguably one of the best players in the game today plays for the French national team. His name is N'Golo Kante. He plays for Chelsea, and he is exactly like the unsung hero, busting his butt to get back on defense, to help with attack, to control possession, to find good outlets. He's probably arguably one of the best holding midfielders in the game today.
100% agreed. This will be Tyler Adams for the USA, almost certainly, unless he were to be injured. Acosta can play the role. Acosta can also play the 8. But Tyler Adams has kind of cemented himself as the team of the 6 of the team. Used to be Michael Bradley played that role quite a bit.
The coach's son? Is that guy?
Who?
Didn't we have a coach's son on the team last time around?
Yep, that was him. When his dad Bob Bradley coached. He was the coach before the German fellow whose name is escaping me at the moment.
It's like Klinsmann or something, right?
Yeah, Klinsmann. Jurgen Klinsmann. Good. We have an intelligent audience. Awesome. Number 8, again, is that box-to-box player is expected to get forward and get back. Often are doing a lot of the running on the team. These players are two-way players that have a good attacking and defensive skill set. This will be Weston McKennie, without a doubt. He plays for Juventus. Probably also considered a top 3 player in our pool at the moment. I would think.
Is he's like 18, right? Super young?
He's young. I don't know his exact age, but yeah, you're right. He's pretty young. All of our midfield core is pretty young, which is good.
I think he's got the buzz, right? Like he's the young star, potentially, right, for the U.S.?
Yeah, I think that's definitely very fair to say. He's scored Champions League goals, and he's done really well at Juventus, which is one of the top Italian clubs.
Played alongside Ronald Eldinho.
I think he was probably too young for that, but
so it
would have been a good partnership.
They're expected to make a goal from around the center field to the goal.
They'll if you're in your attacking half, again, your whole shape will shift forward and back depending, but they'll be in the box if they find opportunities. They could be outside the box shooting from range. When you're defending, they'll generally recover deeper and get into your own box. When I say box to box, I mean they're expected to contribute in all areas of the field, which may not be the case for the other positions. They could shoot from range, but McKennie's got that ability. Sebastian Letget is probably going to be his backup. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does.
Cool. Your attacking mids. More creative. We talked about them earlier a bit. Generally some of the stars on the team. Yunus Musa is another midfielder, very young, who I'd expect would start in that role. Could see Pulisic play in the 10. He has in the past for the American team. He doesn't play the 10 quite so much at Chelsea. Plays more of a winger. But I'd expect if we were putting our best 11 on the field, we would see Musa in that role. Still expected to do everything that a midfielder does, but is generally a little more of a technical player compared to his 8 and 6 peers.
Sorry to interrupt. When you say young in soccer, what is like the standards age-wise that you consider young?
Like he's probably early 20s, maybe 18, 19. You'll see players break in, they go up through club academies, and you'll see some of the best players break into the senior team at 16, 17, 18, 19 across the world. But I would guess, I don't know off the top, but I would guess he's probably early 20s, which is good in the sense of USA has not been traditionally very strong. If they can put together a half decent run here, many of the players that create the core of the team for this World Cup cycle should be around when the World Cup comes to the USA.
I just a quick meta question: are you gonna release the slides? Because I would love to be able to look back at these when I'm like watching the first game to be like, oh yeah, this is this guy playing this position, so these are the things that I should look for that they'll try to do.
Sure, man. I can
Cool.
do that. Strikers. A lot of different kinds of strikers. There are, when I say striker, center forward, for most purposes, those are synonymous terms. This is probably the area where there are the most questions around the U.S. men's team in particular. These three below have played striker recently. I've also seen Daryl Dyke and Jordan Morris play. Could be other guys too. You could have a big, tall striker who does a good job of, we would say, playing with his back to goal, meaning receiving the ball, holding off pressure from the other team's center backs, and facilitating plays there. You could have guys that are more poachers who just kind of lurk around the goal. They're crafty. They're a little bit unpredictable, find ways to make runs and get in behind and score. Sometimes teams will put strikers in who may not be the best goal scorers, but they're good at defending from the front. So I've listed pressing forward here. Giassi Zardes, you might recognize that name. He played in the U.S. men's team for quite a while. He's getting older now, so I would not expect to see him on the roster, but he was very good at pressing and provided a lot of defensive value. We talked about Messi a little bit ago. He would play what we call a false nine. So he would line up as a striker, but would often, in the run of play, drop in and almost play like a 10. And so your team, it would be a little bit unique. You wouldn't necessarily have a striker close to the goal hanging out, wait to score, but you would have a lot of kind of creative, crafty players who would look to combine with the wingers, combine with the backs, combine with their midfielders to break down and get through. These players down below, if I were the head coach, I would play three of our wingers who we'll look at next and ask one to play striker and try to do something from there. Because these guys are okay, but they're not necessarily on the level of being a world-class striker, in my opinion.
You say they're drama queens. Is that because like they score a lot, so they have a huge ego?
Yeah, that's just me being stupid, I guess. They tend to be, again, this is all tongue-in-cheek, right? But they tend to be kind of whiny crybabies, and I think about when I played or the players that I coach, and they'll cry if they don't get the pass played to them perfectly, and they'll just whine and moan. Again, that's all tongue-in-cheek, but yeah.
Kind of like a wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know what football does either. Is there going to be a recitation on that?
No.
So they have
No.
So they're expected to land the majority of the goals, or just like they're like they land ideally the goal. Does that make sense?
A striker, in kind of a vacuum, a striker is going to be assessed on how many goals they score or create. So yeah, they're gonna be judged on their ability to finish. When I say finish, put the ball in the net.
And the team will primarily look to almost always find an opening to pass to them, or
If they can, ideally, that's where a lot of the strategy comes in, right? You build a system, and depending on the characteristics of your personnel and how you want to play, you may be passing the ball directly to their feet. You may be hitting balls in over the top. like we saw in the offside video where they're making runs through and trying to find them that way. You may take the ball wide to your 7 or 11 and hit crosses in. Often it's not so easy as just being able to play the ball to the forward. Most defenses will try not to allow that. But if you can do it, yeah, that would be kind of ideal.
This is kind of a more general question, but like you have 3 players listed here, like you've had almost every slide. It's like Ricardo and Josh play, I guess, in Europe, and Jesus plays in the United States. Like, is there like does that mean the latter 2 are better, or is FC Dallas like getting better to where it doesn't look bad to play for them? Is that like how likely they are to start?
That's kind of that's a how do I want to answer that? I don't think it necessarily means these 2 are better. These guys are all at different stages of their career. Ferreira has had rumors linked of signing overseas. It could depend on their current contract or whatever.
Also, those European teams are not like Augsburg and Norwich City are like Norwich City is a team that's in the relegation zone a bunch. They're not a strong team. Augsburg, I'm assuming what is German, probably lower tier team in that league. So it's yes and no. If they were both playing for like Man City or Arsenal, then you would assume that they have some talent, but it's not also necessarily true. But it's a good game.
Like, yeah, generally in my head, I was like, if they play in America, they're bad. Should I challenge that a little bit more?
Again, when look like Augsburg again, Norwich City and Augsburg are not top tier teams in their league, so I would question a little bit. But I also don't like. I've never heard of any of these players, so I'm to your point of saying like this is the weakest position. I agree because these are no name guys.
I have 2 questions. So, like, you have one striker, really, and, like, he's the one who makes the majority of the goals. So, if you know that, like, the opposing team knows that, right? So, they keep, like, an eye on the striker to try to, restrict his movements or, like, his goal. Is that where, like, a lot of, like, the mind games come into play where you're, like, the other team's focusing on the striker while someone else scores, or has there ever been like 2 strikers in a team?
Yeah. So one of the further slides, we'll talk a little bit about shapes, but you can certainly play with multiple strikers. You could even play, like I talked about, with a false 9 with no strikers. I'd say most teams, sometimes teams will play, for example, like a 3-4-3 where the 7 and 11 will squeeze in and you're essentially playing with 3 9s, 3 strikers. So you could play multiple ones. In an ideal world, your striker would be your best goal scorer most of the time, in which case the defense would probably be trained to account for that in some way, depending on who they were playing. For teams that are going to be playing against the U.S. men's national team, they're probably not very worried about strikers. They're going to be more worried about our wingers and maybe the 3 midfielders, MMA, that I mentioned earlier. It's very... This is, I guess, the strategy of the game. It can all change quite a bit. It's very fluid. It's very rigid, and it can change within the context of a particular game as well. I don't know if that answers very satisfactorily what you were trying to ask, but it's...
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
I was just curious because it's like, okay, well, there's the striker who scores the majority of the goals. So if the other team knows, shouldn't they just like really just focus on that guy?
You could.
But I mean, like in any sport, like football, you're going to double team the best wide receiver, but it's going to open up other players to make plays, right? So if you double it, right, like if you focus on one person, it's going to open up opportunities for other people. I'd say teams have like for instance, probably less on strikers, more on the midfielders, creators. Like Messi, if Messi touches the ball, there is going to be 2 or 3 players surrounding him. And if he touches the ball, they are going to make sure that he feels them, right? Like he's going to get hacked, he's going to get hit, But again, the brilliance of Messi is that 2 or 3 players is still not enough to stop him. But again, with any tactics or anything like that, if you focus your attention on one player, you're going to make an opening for other players.
All right, great. Thank you.
Perfectly said. Okay, so striker is probably our weakest area, but I would consider wingers to probably be one of our strongest. Again, tongue-in-cheek comment on the first bullet, but that's just been my, I guess, observations over time. But regardless, the U.S. team has relatively good players on the wings. Christian Pulisic is probably the most famous current player. He plays for Chelsea. He's not getting a ton of minutes at Chelsea, which is another kind of whole area you could get into. But to have a player play at Chelsea like he has is probably the most prolific player that the U.S. men's national team arguably has ever produced in terms of ability to contribute and contribute positively to a top-tier club. Landon Donovan in the past he played at Everton and played in the EPL, but he never played at a tier 1A team like Pulisic has.
Professor, biggest whiny bitches, is that your opinion or is that widely understood by...
That's my opinion. Again, it's just all they tend to soccer has a reputation for players diving. I think you'll see that a lot from the wingers. Again, that's just me adding. I guess this talk is becoming a little bit more serious than I was expecting it to go down, which is fine, but that's just my color commentary, so you can ignore that bullet if you like.
I like that bullet.
I mean, that's what separates you from your bargain bin kind of soccer coach. So we all appreciate it.
True.
I just needed to confirm if that was a widely understood
term. No, not necessarily.
I think you've taken this exactly the right amount of serious, by the way.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. Gio Reyna is also one of the better players on the team. Plays for Dortmund in Germany, which has become a hotbed of developing talent. He had a dad, Gio Reyna is his father. I'm forgetting his first name, but his father played on the men's national team in the late 90s and early 2000s as well. These guys are also expected to score. They may not score at the same rates as a traditional 9 would, but they're expected to make runs in behind the defense, take players on 1v1 and beat them with skill moves, beat them off the dribble. Their roles can be very flexible. You might play narrower, you might play wider. You might have inverted wingers again, which when I say that term just means a player who wants to attack to his right. You would traditionally play him on the right wing, but it's becoming more common to play him on the left wing and allow him to drift inside. This is probably the area where the U.S. team has the most flexibility from an attacking point of view. Tim Weah and Brendan Aronson are both very good as well, but I'd expect them to be substitutes. What's your question?
If these people are also expected to score, why would you hide kids that suck in these roles? Do they just have less impact?
Because if they're really pretty bad, they're not a liability there. They're not a defensive liability.
Got it.
So it's been a while since I've had a team where the players are really pretty poor. The teams that I coach, we travel around the Midwest quite a bit, go to various college showcases and play at relatively high levels of competition. But if you get more to the lower end of club or the rec, then you'll have to figure out ways to hide your weaknesses. Traditionally, that's where you probably would. But watch out for these guys. These will be the ones that probably make or break the success of the team. Oops. This player's name is Danny Drinkwater, and I think it's funny. And I wanted to show you that.
Does he drink water?
He does. If you look at the picture on the right.
Oh, nice.
Daniel Drinkwater does drink water. He sucks, though. So I think he's English.
Is he a whiny bitch?
Probably. Actually, I think there was. I don't remember exactly. It's been 4 or 5 years since he's been relevant. I think he was a midfielder, actually. I seem to remember some sort of drama about, I don't know.
Yeah, he was more of a holding midfielder.
He's only a whiny bitch when it comes to water, not the game.
Do you recall if is he still playing somewhere, like in the Premier
I'm
League?
sure he is. My head wants to say Leicester, but I don't think that's right. I'm sure he is.
Yeah,
Oh, he's playing in Turkey.
Turkey. Okay, he won't be on England's team this year.
In the NBA, you can see a little bit of flexibility with positions. Like they can go with big lineups and small lineups, and kind of maybe have someone play like the 4 or the 5, depending on the situation. Do you see a lot of position flexibility at all? Like I'm sure they have to take on roles, but do they actually literally change their position ever mid game?
Yeah, definitely. Depending on, I've got I believe I have a slide covering a lot of those things, but you'll have game characteristics of score, how much time's left, does somebody have a red card and you're playing a man down, or whatnot. Things like that can change it. It could change depending on your opponent. If I'm the U.S. men national team manager and we're playing Iran, we should be able to be the dominant technical team. If we're playing England, we're not going to be as technically good as their player set. So we may line up with a more defensive-minded team and kind of sit in and counterattack a little bit more. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail here, but yeah, that's kind of the strategy. Some managers will change their tactics very frequently, and others might not change, at all, and just prefer to focus on what they do and allow the opponent to adjust to them. So there's a lot of words here. This is kind of getting into that. So I think an easy way to kind of summarize attacking soccer is, are you looking to be more patient in possession, or are you looking to attack quick? If you're very heavily, if you've got a lot of very good technical players, maybe you're looking to pass the ball around, control the ball, be dominant in possession, be patient, work it around, eventually find a good opportunity to go forward and try to score. This is where you get a lot of the soccer's so boring, they're not doing anything, they're just passing it around kind of stuff. Well, they're kind of passing the ball in order to trigger the opponent's defensive shape to move around. And as they move around, various spaces open up or close, in which case, they may be trained to look for openings in certain areas of the field and then start an attack. So when you see this kind of passing just for the heck of it, stuff that you see a lot in high-level soccer, it's a team trying to be patient and probe. On the other end of the spectrum, you'll have teams that get very packed in defensively. They'll drop their lines and they'll drop all their players deep, and they'll sit in and they'll be really tough to break down and try to not allow spaces in between them. And then when they do win the ball, they'll kick it forward. Maybe they'll try to play super direct, meaning they'll try to kick it forward fast and quick and towards the other team's goal and try to find their striker making a run. So you kind of have this spectrum of where you play. So this could be, again, depending on your opponent, you may be a heavily possession-oriented team one day. The next day you're playing against somebody a little bit better, be more of a counter-attacking team. In the World Cup, you'll see, Costa Rica is a team that over the last 20 years has way outperformed. They're in this World Cup as well. They're way outperformed what you'd expect them to be able to do based on their size and their profile. And they do that by a lot of times playing like a 5-4-1, which is a very defensive-minded shape, 5 backs, 4 midfielders, 1 striker, and they'll sit in, they'll counterattack, and they've got really good at doing that and getting results that way. You'll see teams that more your traditional soccer powerhouses, Brazil, Argentina, Spain, England, Germany to some extent will be much more of a possession-focused team because they got the players that are just better and can do that.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, do these differences in styles lead to more upsets than other sports, or is it much more certain for the better team to win?
I don't know the stats on that. I mean, you do see upsets. I don't know if it's more or less frequent than other sports, but I mean, they do happen. You see, Italy won the European competition, 2 years ago now, and then didn't even qualify for the World Cup. They got upset a few times in didn't win games that they should have, and they didn't make it to the World Cup because of it. So you'll definitely see some upsets, but I think traditionally chalk rules out, you know. This second to last bullet is also very opinionated, but I think it's most exciting when you see two teams with clashing styles. One wants to sit in and counter, and one wants to be more of a possession team. I think that's where you get to, you know, that's exciting soccer, but maybe not high-scoring soccer, in my opinion. But if you got two teams that both are wanting to possess, then there should be a lot of space around, and maybe you get more goals that way. Similar to how you handle what you're going to do in possession. Well, I guess just real quick, these some of the things that Adam was touching on. You know, there's different things that might change what you do. What's the score? What's the state of the group? Do you need 3 points out of your game to advance, or can you get by with 1? That might change your strategy. How do you facilitate your players and put them in positions where they're going to be most effective? You know, these are all kind of things I think teams are considering when they're figuring out how they want to play in a very general sense. But similar to in possession, you have ideas of what you want to do when you're not in possession, when you're defending. You may sit in what we'll call a low block, meaning you won't run out of your team shape and go try to steal the ball from the opponent. If they're dribbling at you, you may just allow them to dribble, and you may just stay organized and not allow spaces to open up in between your lines or in between your players, and just be very frustrating to try to break down. That would be more of a low block style where you're very patient, very relaxed. The other end would be a high press where you're willing to stretch your team shape high up the field, try to win the ball back from your opponent quickly, try to, you know, kind of, I guess, outman them, outmuscle them, win the ball higher. If you win it higher, maybe you're closer to goal and you could score that way. So kind of two different, I guess, mindsets. USA, traditionally, the player pool for the U.S. has not been able to compete with the player pools for the world powers. But we have been able to compete in terms of endurance, physical fitness, stuff like that. So many of our managers over the past years have encouraged a high pressing style, but we did not have necessarily the technical ability to keep the ball if we did win it back. So it'd be sort of kind of a high pressing, counterattacking style, which was very unique. Whether it worked very well, like most would say, it hasn't produced results, but on occasion, maybe it has. I think we're starting to become more of a technical team. We're still not nearly as technical as some of the world powers, but there are indicators that it's trending in that kind of direction. Easy way to think about it, poor man's blanket. If there's a poor man sleeping in the cold, he can pull his blanket up, but then your feet are exposed. If you press high up the field, you leave space in behind and you get beat with long balls. Or if you sit in deep and you pull that blanket down towards your feet, well, you don't have many players forward. You're not going to win the ball back very quickly. So I think that analogy is pretty helpful. Questions? We're almost done. Okay. I don't know why these pictures are... I don't know why they're here. I forget.
It's like GeoCities.
Something to look at, I guess. I won't read through these, but there are other things you consider about deciding how you might want to defend. And these can change inside of a game, or it could be depending on your opponent, you know, whatever.
So I would quickly say that on many other sports, there's a lot of stoppage of play, whether it be timeouts or fouls or quarters, periods. In soccer, right, it's 2 halves. There's no timeouts, so it makes it difficult to make adjustments in game. There's a lot of adjustments that happen during the half when there's time to actually talk and figure it out. So it's trickier to make adjustments in the game. It happens, right? There's hand signals or whatever phrases to change shape or to change tactics, but that's one thing that makes it kind of tricky in the game, because there's really no stoppage of play.
So a coach has less say because there's no like timeouts or any of that until like
It,
a half.
yes and no. I mean, obviously the coaches are on the sideline running up and down and screaming and yelling, so that like they do influence, but it's just harder because I just think of basketball, right? Like the team goes on a run and coach takes a timeout, right, to kind of stop the bleeding. There is no, you can't do that in soccer. So it's just more difficult. Not to say that it doesn't happen, right? Because the coaches are running up and down and yelling, and there are, you can change tactics and change shape. It's just harder because the play is really never stops.
Got it.
Yeah. From an observer's point of view, I think a lot of those tactical changes you can notice when a team sends substitutes in. They might pull out a striker and add another holding midfielder if they're trying to be a little bit more defensive. So you'll see that could be one trigger. But yeah, you don't have any timeouts or things. In coaching courses I've had to take to be licensed as a coach, they often encourage us to speak less during games, to really not speak a ton, to allow your training at practice, to allow the players time to practice that in terms of development. So during an average game, I'm not shouting, but I guarantee if I was coaching a World Cup, I would be running up and down like crazy too, because the results are important. But it's very much players' game, I think, is kind of a fair way to put it. There's some more clips here. I don't think it's necessary to look through them just because we're kind of going a little bit long, but I've said the word tactics. We've kind of said the word tactics to refer to kind of strategy, but there are ways, kind of, I guess, micro tactics of can you get into a 2v1 situation? If so, you've got tools that you can use to advance by that defender in that particular instance, like overlapping runs or wall passes, things like that. You may hear announcers refer to overloads, which would be when a team maybe imbalances their shape. Maybe they stick more players towards the right in possession than they do on the left, with the hope being that maybe you're able to outnumber the opponent's defensive shape, combine and with passing and try to break through in that way. You hear the term set pieces, that just generally means a free kick. So after a foul has been committed, or maybe things like corner kicks. Set pieces are ways that especially teams that are not as good can score. Kind of a great equalizer, I guess. So look out for set pieces. If you hear the term between the lines, it just means spaces between the opponent's defensive shape where maybe they've got time to receive the ball. And I touched on inverted players earlier. Team shape. So you can set up very different ways. These are some common shapes that you see. This is where a lot of the strategy and the tactics come in, based on the manager's determination of how they expect the game to go, which of their players are fit, things like that. I've coached teams with all of these shapes before. You may or may not have a favorite. I like 3-5-2 is probably my favorite shape as of late, but how you set up will often be an indicator of how you plan to play both in possession and out of possession. So if I'm coaching a team, I'll combine the numbers, and that allows you to convey a lot of information very quickly. So if I say set up in a 4-4-2 diamond, I want a 6, 2 8s, and a 10, you can read that paragraph. I want the 8s to drift wide, backs to play inverted, fill the half spaces. That's like 2 sentences, and then I can get a whole team to get on the same page and understand their individual roles and what I want the team shape to look like when we have the ball, and how we tend to attack. So this would be kind of what it looks like in action. The middle picture, even though it's a 4-4-2, we'd see our center backs here kind of providing some depth. Our holding mid would be holding their vertical movement They're not getting too close to the goal. They're staying back and providing an outlet in possession. We've got one striker sitting high, as I would have asked in this sentence, one coming under, and then the 2 8s, who were these 2 side midfielders, are drifting wide. So the whole reason we use this number system, at least in my perspective, is to convey a lot of information very quickly. So I might send a sub in and say, okay, pull out the striker. I need you to play as the second 6, and you'll be able to get a lot of information into the player very quickly. You'll hear a lot of the color commentators talk about the numbers and stuff and how they correspond to tactics as well. World Cup, I think there's like 3 more slides and we're done. World Cup, 8 groups.
This is good. Please don't feel the need to rush. This is good content.
Okay. All right. Well, if you got questions or want to keep talking, I'm happy to do this all day. But World Cup set up. You got 4 groups of 8. Everybody qualifies through their regional soccer governing body. So in the U.S., it's called CONCACAF, which consists of Central and North America. Qatar is the only one that qualifies automatically because they're the host nation. Round robin in your groups, play each team once. Top two from each team, the top 2 from each group advance to the knockout stage. The first match is in 3 weeks, and then the finals are December 18th. A couple things that you'll probably hear about. Almost certainly Messi and Ronaldo's last World Cup. They'll rightfully be considered 2 of the best, 2 of the GOATs to play. Messi's team, Argentina, is legit a favorite to potentially win the whole event. I don't think Portugal is necessarily considered as strong, but they're always relatively good. They should make at least the knockout stage. People are protesting Iran's inclusion. I've heard people say that there are various things in motion where they might get replaced with Ukraine. I don't see how this could possibly happen at this point, but maybe. I really like this picture of the USA wins 1-1. This is from the 2014 World Cup when the USA tied England, which was a major it's not an upset, but it's a major result.
Wasn't it because the goalie did something really stupid?
Yeah, he had a huge blunder where it was a routine, just low shot, just kind of dribbled to his hands, and he just duffed it and knocked it into his own net. That kind of ended that guy's career. I don't think he even really had anything substantial go on in his club career after that.
Joe Hart?
Yeah. Did he do much after that?
No.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yikes.
So that was Dempsey who scored that goal. That's a celebration. That picture is from that celebration right after. I feel like I'm certainly missing some. I don't know if you guys have heard of any major World Cup storylines coming up, but
I think, drama around Qatar. I think Qatar is the only host. So they automatically qualified. They've never qualified before, never been relevant. I think they're the only team that's never had qualified previously before hosting. I don't think any other host country had not qualified before.
I think you're right. And there's all this stuff about corruption in FIFA. Much of it is related to Qatar being awarded the opportunity to host the World Cup.
And so Qatar is a Muslim country, and so part of their culture, religion, is they don't drink, and part of culture and tradition for most other countries is that they drink heavily during this time. So they are setting up drinking zones in Qatar, and sober zones in Qatar, and it's in my opinion, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. There's going to be something will happen. Argentinian fans are the craziest. Argentinian and Australian fans are the craziest fans I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely. Something's going to go down. We'll see. The top two.
A soccer player?
He's a link.
Nice.
Yeah. footybite.com if you ever want to stream soccer, go there.
Is it free?
It's free. It's definitely illegal, but
Oh, okay, nice.
All right, Peter.
What?
Strike three.
Strike
All right.
3, Peter. You're done. Boy.
I mean, it might be illegal. You never know for sure.
Or 2.5 strikes, Peter.
I love this footy scran Twitter. I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, but it's just it shows weird food that they eat, like disgusting shit around the world. Crazy.
At footy matches?
Footy scran.
What's a footy?
Footy is short for football, which is
Oh.
soccer. If you are so inclined, check out that Reddit. It has a bunch of clips of really bad soccer plays. Estra Kalasa, however you say that, is like a Danish like third league or something, where a lot of the clips come from.
I'll trust you, because if I just saw that name, I would not ever click on that Reddit.
That's fair. It's safe for work, I promise.
You said
That's
the
all
same thing about this presentation.
That's true. That's all I had. I forget exactly what these links are.
Well, who are the favorites in the World Cup this year? Because you've mentioned like world powers.
Yeah.
Like who are they in this World Cup?
Well, I would say, I think last I looked, Argentina was the bettor's favorite. Let me pull it up, but certainly it would be your traditional powers: Argentina, Germany. Spain is maybe down a little bit from where they were. Go ahead.
I think actually Argentina can't be are they really the favorite? I would say France is probably the favorite. France or Belgium.
Yeah, it very well could be France. Let's see.
And Brazil, always.
Yeah, so whatever this webpage is that I found, Vegas Insider, has Brazil is the first favorite, followed by France, then Argentina, England, Spain, Germany, Netherlands, Portugal, Belgium after that.
Whoa, Belgium way down.
Yeah, Belgium's getting a little bit older. I went to Vegas over the summer, though. I made a few bets, and I put money on Belgium because I thought the odds were pretty good. I have money on Belgium and Netherlands.
I have them going in the final in my bracket.
Yeah?
Yeah,
All
I have Brazil, Belgium.
That would be good.
Is it normal to do brackets before the bracket is even decided? Or like
So it's the groups are all decided. So you pick the top two, you pick like the 1A, 1B of each group. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not a bracket scientist, but then it's like group A plays group B, and it's like 1A versus 2A, whatever.
So like it's already decided if we win our group, we would play it'd probably be the second team from group F or something like that. Like that's already locked in.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Now, should I be expecting us to get out over Wales and Iran or Ukraine or whoever?
I mean, I really hope so. England by far is the best out of that group. Wales really only has one player, Gareth Bale. And Iran I wouldn't expect them to do anything. So I would, if the U.S. doesn't make it out of the group, it'd be a huge disappointment.
What position does that Bale guy play?
He's a striker.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
He was one of those truly world-class strikers for many years. I think he's now, is he at LAFC or the other LA team? He's in the MLS, though. Had a bunch of drama.
He's older now. He's out of his prime. But you never know. Sometimes a bit of magic left. Who knows? But I would not expect Wales to make it out.
Wales will almost certainly need a point, I would say.
Yeah. The next World Cup, they're changing the whole format. So I think this year, it's how many? So it's 4 and how many groups? I think it's like 32 teams, right? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Next World Cup, I don't know the exact number, but the group they're doing groups of 3 and expanding the number of teams.
Now,
So
what's the-
more countries will be able to participate.
What's the formula? Is it 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie?
Yeah, correct.
And then tiebreaker is goals scored? Or like your differential, I mean?
Yes.
I believe goal differential would come first, and then it would be, I don't know the World Cup exactly, but some combination of goals scored, goals allowed. I think cards can come into play at some point down the line.
So if you're like I don't know the teams well enough, but you're not a traditional power and you win your first game, or you're like ahead late, are you just gonna like try to just really run up the score if you can, rather than playing conservative? Like say you're up 3-0. Notice how I use nil because I know soccer now.
Nice.
Do you like what do you do? Like what is your mindset there if you have like England or someone in your group that you know is probably gonna get out?
I mean, I don't think you'll see many games where a team can just score an unlimited amount of goals.
But would
Maybe very rarely.
would they shift to a different tactic? Like because normally they would probably start playing conservatively, right, and just play defense to not give up goals.
Sure.
Would they avoid doing that so they can try to continue scoring at a decent pace?
They could. It could depend on the state of the group. Like if that's their third game they're in and they know they need to gain goal differential, of course they'll keep pressing. If it's the first game, maybe they don't have all that information. They'll know who their opponents are and have an expectation of how they think they're going to do. But, you definitely could see that. If USA were to play, who do we play first? Is it Iran, I think? I wouldn't expect them to get one goal and then park the bus, which just means pack it in like defensively. I would expect them to keep pressing a bit, but most important thing is that you get the result that you need. If we can tie England, that would be I think a winning draw. We would love to get 3 points against Wales. If we get 1, I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world. If we don't get any points against Wales, then we're going to be in trouble. And Iran should be a win.
There is some level of respect for other countries, especially I would imagine anyone playing Qatar is not going to crush them, even though they're probably the worst team that's ever qualified for the World Cup because they're hosting and their fans are there, right? So you're not going to go in and crush them. You're going to win handedly, but you're not going to embarrass them, right? So there is a little bit of kind of respect and decorum, but certainly, obviously you want to win and you want to score goals. And if it is a competitive group and it comes down to goal differential, then yeah, you would maybe not, like you said, be conservative and keep pressing. But again, it's kind of in some cases, you would maybe not try to embarrass a country.
Placement is done by a formula, I'm guessing, that spreads out. Are there politics in it? They would never put South Korea and North Korea in the same group, right?
There's a draw process, so I watched this draw live, but I don't remember when it was. But there are rules around. USA could not end up in any of the groups with any of the other CONCACAF teams, so we could not be in the same group as Mexico or Costa Rica. I think Europe was allowed a max of 2, so they kind of randomly draw teams and put them in these groups, and then if it would violate a rule, they'll put them in the next group or whatever. So I don't think there's necessarily politics in it, but there are rules to kind of distribute the teams amongst each other. But none of that applies when they go to the knockout stage. There's no limit about who you can play there.
I just like thinking about the geopolitics. Like Dan said, nobody's going to want to smash Qatar because it's probably not wise.
Yeah.
If you had 2 countries that just hated each other in a group match, I'm curious what would happen. But I don't think that's really possible, given they're generally going to be geographically close.
Yeah, like if it was Russia and Ukraine or something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or North Korea, South Korea, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I know, like Israel. So Israel's a Middle Eastern country, but they actually go through qualification through Europe to avoid conflict, which is why they don't ever qualify for the World Cup, because the Europe qualification is so competitive. But there are some things like that happen to avoid some conflict.
Which I don't know if everyone is familiar, but there like it happens in chess too, where there's like Israeli chess players, and like someone from Iran will just straight up not, they will refuse to play the person from Israel because they don't like Iran doesn't recognize Israel as a country. So it's like if you were to play them, sorry, this is getting pretty off topic, but it's like you don't want to lend any credence to the notion that they are actually representing a legit nation.
Would Bobby Fischer have played someone from Israel? That's even more off topic.
I'll defer that one to Coach Wensa.
No comment. I don't know. I actually didn't know Israel went through Europe qualification. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
When
I'm
is
trying
the...
to look at...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to change topic. So continue this conversation.
No, I was just going to say, I was trying to look through the groups of like what, I don't know, like rivalries there are. I don't see, I don't know, maybe Spain, Germany, just because they're both European countries and they're both powerhouses. And they say like the every World Cup they have like the group of death, which is like the toughest group. I'm trying to see what would we qualify as the toughest group here.
I'm not sure there really is one to the same extent there normally
Maybe I would
is.
say just because Spain and Germany are in the same group, but there's really no big. Yeah, it's really weighted pretty evenly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree. Canada is actually really good relative to how they normally are. So Canada is very rarely even in the World Cup, but they're actually really pretty solid. So they could maybe make some noise.
So Canada has the first match.
The worst match or the first?
First.
I want to know the worst match.
It's November 20th. I believe it's Qatar versus, I don't know. I believe Qatar kicks off. I can look.
Are we doing anything in this Discord for World Cup? Like a bracket or something?
I was thinking about trying to organize it. I haven't researched. Dan, I know you said that you looked and didn't find much, but I was thinking maybe kind of splitting it into two, where we'd have some sort of predict how the groups shake out and then make a bracket as a second part.
We have a watch party with cosplaying.
You gonna dress up as
what if we did something like everyone who wants to participate like drafts a number of teams, right? So we just divide. You get like 2 teams or 3 teams because you draft them.
That could be fun.
And then you like maybe set up a scoring system. The group stage is easy. You just match that, and then for the bracket portion, like maybe it's worth 3 for the first round, 6 for the second round, or something like that. Like you could build out some sort of thing. But I think it'd be interesting that I'd be following the Iran team for this very weird reason. I'd be interested to see like where America gets drafted. I think it'd be an interesting thing.
It's a good idea. Yeah, maybe I'll look into that.
You get the countries that you won during the GeoGuessr competition.
Oh no, too hard. And November 20th, I believe it's 11 a.m. Eastern. Qatar plays Ecuador, and then USA plays the next day against Wales.
Are these all weekdays?
Well, they'll start. I don't know what day of the week the 20th is, but they'll keep going every day until the group stages are done, including weekdays.
Sorry, I mean, are USA games like are any at convenient times to do like a Discord thing? If people
I don't know.
Inclined?
I'll look and see.
It's probably going to be tough just because of the time zone difference.
Yeah. Looks like some games are starting. I mean, obviously it's on the other part of the world from us, but some games are starting at 5 a.m. Eastern.
I mean, some people, I feel like if some people can play StarCraft during work hours, you could probably pull up a stream. I don't know.
Difference between pulling up a stream and getting on Discord and interacting, though.
Well, that's all I got.
You want your boss to overhear you.
You guys have been a great group. Thank you for allowing me to preach, and for Dan for helping out.
I had your presentation was incredible. I had no part in it. I just chimed in with random nonsense. That was awesome, though.
Yeah, that was great. Like, I actually learned quite a bit, especially the positions, because I had no clue who plays what when watching a game. At least now I'll have like a general clue.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys saying that. I don't know, I'm kind of a dork about a lot of this, but I could sit and talk soccer tactics and stuff. I don't watch as much like Premier League and stuff as maybe I should, but I really enjoy the strategy and the man management and all the kind of stuff that goes into the actual game, I guess, quote unquote. So I didn't know exactly how much detail you guys wanted, or if we hit all the topics, or but hopefully you guys found it a little bit helpful.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
Now
great.
I know. Now I know our Omega striker comp. Shocks is the goaltender. Peter's the whiny bitch. I'm the drama queen.
There you go.
If you could
of
change one
nines.
rule, if you could change one rule to make soccer better, what would it be?
I would get rid of penalties in some capacity. I don't know. I have to put a lot of thought into how to do that, but I don't like penalty kicks.
Like you would allow not that you would allow like violent physical contact. You mean like penalty kicks in particular?
Yeah, like in the group stage, games can end in ties, but in the knockout stage, they can't end in a tie. So they eventually go to a penalty shootout. I actually, a coach that I work with in my club coaches a high school team that they just wrapped up their season. They had a game in their high school state tournament that went 17 rounds of penalty kicks, which is blew away the state record. Normally, you'd have a round of 5 penalty kicks, and then you go kind of one at a time for each team until you get a clear winner. But they went 17 rounds deep. It's just I don't like the way that it takes the game and makes it like a micro game. That's a completely different thing.
Yeah,
But
that's
I would
not
change
soccer, right? That's just like one tiny element of it.
Yeah. They used to do in overtime. Some competitions still do, but they don't in the World Cup. Call it golden goal, which would mean the next goal wins. Maybe bring that back in some capacity instead of going to pens. That would be my clear answer. I don't know
What do you
you
think
guys
of Ted Lasso?
I actually haven't seen that show. I know I need to. I get it recommended all the time. I've never watched it. Is it good?
I liked it a lot. I like it a lot.
What do you think of where he coached college at?
I think it's awesome too.
What did you say, Cameron? Where he coaches college at?
Yeah, I asked what do you think of where he coached college at?
Yeah,
Where it
it was Wichita State, right? He taught football, he coached football at Wichita, right?
That's right.
Fun facts. I will. I need to get on that for sure.
I would like to compliment the level that this was at I think was perfect. Like I feel like this is like ELI 10. Like it's not super basic, but it was basic enough. I didn't know anything, and I feel like I'm intelligent enough now to be able to shout calculatedly stupid things at the screen, which is my niche for sports. So I'm very appreciative.
I like the personal quips you put. So now if I ever meet those like left, right, wing people, I'll call them whiny bitches.
Yeah, just take a look.
Glad.
Neymar, come on.
That's what you want to.
Neymar the wing.
He's a winger. Yeah.
But that's good because that's like a background quip that someone learning wouldn't really know. That's like clearly from someone experienced.
Yeah, whoever said it was like wide receivers in the NFL. That's a very good analogy, I think.
Was Deion Sanders a whiny bitch?
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, look forward to the second annual pre-World Cup lecture. Perhaps we will get into more detail then. But yeah, we'll put a competition together somehow. Got
Yeah,
a few
that'd be
weeks
fun.
still.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for
That'd
sure.
be great.
Yeah, I wonder if FanDuel will do anything.
Oh, that's good.
Ooh.
I know they do
Really?
Premier League stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's probably too early, but I didn't see anything.
I'm really interested in the slides you made about the World Cup storylines. I think if following up on that would be fun. I do love me some storylines.
How long is it between group phase and knockout phase?
Just a couple days, I'm pretty sure. If that. It looks like... No, I'm sorry. It looks like group stage ends December 2nd, and the first round of 16 games are scheduled for December 3rd.
Oh, okay, so it jumps right in.
Are they
Yeah.
played in stadium or is the top covered?
I think it depends. I don't know about Qatar in particular, but I'd imagine some might be covered, but most are probably
How's
open.
the weather around
Yeah,
December in Qatar?
so it was actually a big because usually the World Cup is in the summer, right?
Yeah.
And they moved it because Qatar in the summer is like triple digits, and player safety and everything like that. So it's a little unique. And they moved it to this timing so that it wasn't hot. I do recall hearing about, and I don't know if this was like way back ago, like they wanted to make like artificial clouds or like something to that effect so that it would block the sun so it wouldn't be so hot.
That's insane.
I have no idea, but for some reason that just pops in my head of like they wanted to make these artificial clouds to help with the weather. I don't know.
Bezos wouldn't do it.
What's that?
Jeffrey Bezos wouldn't do it.
Why,
He wouldn't
Um,
invent it for us.
I don't know.
Why be so complicated? Why not just make like a very large umbrella?
There you go. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best solutions.
Exactly. Like
But yes, there is a lot of controversy with hosting in Qatar. There's rumors that Qatar bribed FIFA, which I think is pretty true. B, when they were building the stadiums, there was a lot of like humanitarian, like a lot of workers died, and just the way that they treated their workers was not like up to par. So there's kind of those are kind of like the two biggest controversies with Qatar at the moment.
Does it snow in Qatar in December?
Probably not.
No.
Does it snow in Qatar, period?
No way.
Okay. I have no clue. I don't know anything about Qatar.
I would assume the weather is similar to Pakistan.
Yeah, I do know about Pakistan, but wouldn't it be I guess it depends on what time of day. I was gonna say it should be freezing though.
Looks like in December the average low is 61, January 57. Average high is still in like the 70s.
That's really
So
good.
their coldest months are, I would say, pretty comfortable.
Gotcha.
Probably would not need a long sleeve tee.
What's the easiest way to share the slide deck? I have a PDF.
Is there any fighting in soccer like hockey? Do they allow them to fight?
No,
Just headbutt, right?
just headbutt. And then you get a look at a cool colored piece of paper. The referee shows you.
If the PDF's not that big, can you just upload it in a Discord channel?
Oh, does it? I didn't know I could do that. Let me see the size.
We have Boost, so you should be able to upload pretty big files.
If
Oh,
you think
upload a file. Okay, I see it here.
if you think it's appropriate, you can mark the message as NSFW. It's up to your discretion.
Let's see if it goes through first.
All right, cool.
But that was
Looks
a
like
great
it.
presentation, in all honesty. Thank you for taking the time to actually create that PowerPoint. That was great.
That was legit.
Like, yeah, that was
Yeah.
perfect for like assuming everyone's skill level, because that was like generalized for everybody.
Thanks, man. I did have not very many, but a few of those slides prepared from. I've given talks to rec associations, their coaches, trying to train them, I guess, or give them training activities to do. So I had a little bit of it done, but yeah, I'll see if I can find some more texts or emails that might be entertaining.
I do have one question. What is like typically the age that most soccer players, professional soccer players, tend to either fall off or retire because they just don't feel it physically anymore?
If you're talking like a player who is like a solid professional player, they'd probably retire, I don't know, mid-30s, late 30s. Like goalkeepers tend to be able to play longer and peak later in their, a field player probably peaks in the mid-20s, but a keeper might not peak until 30 or so. Could play till they're 40. Field
Oh,
players generally.
is that like they get experience under their belt and then they just like, the physical demand isn't that high, so with that experience they peak?
Yeah, that hypothesis makes sense to me. I don't know, I guess, a real answer to that, but that would be my guess. They're not having to run quite a bit. Like I forget the stat here. I could look it up, but at some point I think I read like that your average Premier League player is running 7 or 8 miles a game. Premier League player.
Adam does that every day. Adam, why are you not playing Premier League?
Adam does that before I even wake up in the morning. Like,
Damn.
What do I do?
run that much
Oh,
every day.
The stat that Winston
should I
said.
go to the Premier League?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you run 7-8 miles every day, you're already doing what they do.
I'm basically there.
And now you know all the numbers, 1 through 11.
You're
Now I know
basically
the numbers.
Messi at this point.
I'm basically Messi. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think so. It says keepers run like 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 kilometers per game, which is a lot more than I would have thought. But
That surprises me.
That was a good analogy, though. It's like Messi. Not analogy, I mean statements. Like if Messi goes for the ball, you're gonna have like 2, 3 people just like camping him. It's like that carry player in a MOBA. You just like camp his lane to make sure he doesn't like snowball.
pop off. Yeah, Messi's incredible though. That he'll get through it anyways. It'll be fun. I hope his team does well. I don't really care about Ronaldo's team doing that well, to be honest, but we shall see.
I noticed I didn't see Freddie Adu in any of your slides. Is there a reason for that?
He gone. He was playing like 3rd division in America, but probably not even professional. Last I looked.
Are
Freddie
all
Adu.
the players in your slides in professional teams, or are they also like college and other teams?
They're all professional
college
players. I'd say probably 3/4 of them are playing in Europe somewhere, and the other quarter are playing in Major League Soccer. Some of the players might be old enough It might be like 18, 19 where they could be in college, but they probably went and played in international academies and
Are there
skipped the
really
college
good
route.
like? Are there really good like Europeans or Americans that get scouted and drafted to like European teams, like opposing country teams?
The draft, like a traditional sports draft, would be very unique to the United States. So there is an MLS draft, but majority of top tier players are going to, let's just say, for example, maybe they're going to Manchester United and playing in they have an academy. So they have essentially a youth club that they run, and players that are playing on their older academy teams will often be folded into their senior team, their true kind of club team, and maybe they'll sign a contract or something like that.
Got it.
So most of the players aren't going through the college ranks. Most of the really, really good players. But you do have a MLS draft that drafts players from college and will sign them to some, modest contract. And those players could then be, not really traded, but you can have transfers between clubs of different countries where they'll agree on some transfer fee. So they may pay, Chelsea might buy player X from the Columbus Crew and pay them, $500,000 or something for the right to transfer him over. You see that quite a bit.
Gotcha.
Ready to do. I got an article here. I don't know where he is. I don't know. I don't think he's playing professionally anymore. Too much pressure. He last played in 2021 for a Swedish team that I can't pronounce.
He's got to be
I've
like
never heard of.
mid-30s now, right?
He was born in 89. He's 33. Same as me.
I'm impressed, Joe. You already completed a run in Mario Golf.
Yeah, I did. I was playing while Wenza was talking.
We're not supposed to start till
Wow.
the first.
Dude.
He played during the. He's dedicated.
I don't know how much time I'm gonna have to play over the next week, so
I mean, that's a good score.
good round. Was happy with it.
All right, sounds like we're wrapping
That
up.
7 wasn't great, but the rest of it was okay.
Cool talk, Wensa.
That was a hard